Placemaking is essentially a concept where people do not just come to work and be home, but it's really like a place that people can enjoy and can do more, let's say, combine a lot of things into a space itself to fully utilize the asset.
We have a concept called urban regeneration, and it involves kind of revamping an old historical cultural area by contemporizing it with shops, retail, and experiences that would attract people to come back to revitalize the place. Taikoo Li Chengdu project was built around a Daci temple with 1400 years of history. We preserved 6 traditional courtyards showcasing Sichuanese traditional architectural styles. We are trying to harmonize with the history. We also put in more than 300 retail shops and eateries, and each year it welcomes more than 30 million people. Another challenge that we have seen is how do we actually engage people, not just the company. So when we work on, say, Green Performance Pledge with office tenants, we are partnering with the company. But then the real change comes from the people. So how do we influence beyond the office admin person or the senior management?
Welcome to JEBCast. I'm your host of today, Shuxin. In today's episode, Weaving Communities, a deep dive into Swire Properties' placemaking philosophy, we explore what it means by building spaces that do not just serve, but connect, inspire, and thrive. Joining us today, we have Phoebe Leung, Senior Sustainable Development Manager at Swire Properties. Without further ado, Phoebe, introduce yourself and let us know how your path led you to sustainability and your role in Swire Properties.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here today. So I'm Phoebe. I'm currently working as the Senior Manager at Sustainable Development at Swire Properties. I've joined this company for 7 years. I'm part of the Corporate Sustainable Development team. So we work on formulating and implementing the different sustainable development strategies and programs within the company.
Thank you for your sharing and welcome you to our show today. So the first question I have for you is around Swire Properties. As I know is that they had a remarkable year in 2024. I'm curious to know what are some of the strategies that drove the success.
Sure. So in 2024, we had reached a very landmark milestone by becoming the top company in the Dow Jones Best-in-Class World Index within the real estate management and development category. This is really aligned with our sustainable development vision, which was set up back in 2016. And we aim to become the leading sustainable development performer globally in our industry by 2030. So by reaching this top milestone with the Dow Jones Index, we were able to reach our vision 6 years ahead of time. So we had a lot of celebrations within our company for this last year and this year. I think what really sets Swire Properties apart is a couple of factors. There's a very strong senior management buy-in for how sustainable development can bring value to the company. We also have a very comprehensive sustainable development strategy called the SD 2030 strategy. And we have an inclusive and robust governance framework with participation from a lot of different colleagues, from senior to more junior staff. And we also have very strong focus on integrating sustainability into various aspects of the business.
Like just now you have mentioned about this concept of places, which is central to SD30 strategies. At this juncture, I hope that you can explain to our listeners the concept of placemaking and how is it applied to your organization in various aspects.
Sure. So as a property developer, we are aware that for every location that we operate in, the way that we design, operate, and manage the place is going to have significant social and environmental impact. And so when we develop a new location, we do put a lot of thoughts into placemaking. That is not just creating new buildings, but how to actually create a vibrant and a sustainable place. And that requires balancing various different aspects, including the aesthetics of the place, the function of the place, what we expect people to do there, how we expect them to use it, as well as the cultural value of the place and the sustainability performance of the place. And so throughout the years, we have gained a lot of experience in placemaking. Some of it are very close to home. For example, in Taikoo Place, we have a place called the Taikoo Square. It was just opened back in 2024. And so with that space added to Taikoo Place, we now have about 30% of Taikoo Place with green spaces, and that's about 70,000 square feet of green space. And what's more is not just a lot of trees and a green area. We put a lot of thought into what kind of plants we should put there in order to improve the urban biodiversity. So we worked with an ecological expert from the University of Hong Kong to study the biodiversity within Quarry Bay. And then we handpicked 260 different kinds of species to put into the park. And about 20% of them are native species, so native to Hong Kong. And that proportion is much higher than the average city's urban area. And with this kind of different components, we were able to create a green corridor for the birds, for the butterflies, and other wildlife that are crossing between the Quarry Bay Park and also Mount Parker. Yeah, so it has ecological value. And on top of that, there's also environmental value. We looked at the microclimate within Taikoo Place, and we make sure that there is natural ventilation, which can help improve the air quality, reduce the heat island effect. And also with the green spaces, we were able to increase water retention as well. So increase the climate resilience of Taikoo Place.
Wow. There is a lot of great examples happening around where we are recording now, which is Taikoo. And personally, like me coming to work on a day-to-day basis, like I don't really I probably should think more beyond like just coming to work and living. But turns out that there's so much thoughts that goes behind like the entire design of this like space itself, which applies to like every other district in many places. Curious to know more about like the initiatives, like taking Taikoo Square aside, like are there any events or engagements that you guys do with like the Taikoo Square tenants as well?
Yeah, this very interesting space that we have created is also able to create very interesting events. And so one of the signature events at Taikoo Place each year is the White Christmas Street Fair. And it's unique not just because it uses a very interesting space, but it also is a combination of youth empowerment, tenant engagement, community engagement, and environmental sustainability. So every year, together with the Placemaking Academy, which is a youth empowerment program at Swire Properties, we also will engage university students to design and execute the street fair. So with these young talents, we're able to insert a lot of very creative ideas. For example, last year, the theme of the street fair was Camp Unity. And the students used upcycled coffee capsules to create Christmas string lights, which were very beautiful. And they also introduced like zero waste for our F&B services. So there was no single-use cups or containers or cutleries provided throughout the fair. We encourage all the participants to come with their own container or to borrow and rent the containers from the street fair itself. This has helped us to save about more than 17,000 containers and cups from the landfill. And we were also able to like totally eliminate the use of polyfoam, which is not very easy to recycle. And we also reduced the usage of fiberglass for some of the installation using some 3D printing technology with quartz sand. I also want to bring up like a very interesting project that we have in Shanghai.
which is Taikoo Li Chengdu. It is our very first wellness-themed retail development, opened in 2021 in Shanghai.
And with this wellness theme, they have a double open park concept where they have 86,000 square feet of green spaces as a green oasis. And on top of that, they also have a sky loop, which is a running track on the rooftop of that building. So people can enjoy various kinds of experiences there. And there's also a lot of wellness themed events throughout the year, like dress well, live well, eat well, run well. Yeah, so an example of what they have recently done is an Eat Well campaign where they engage with the F&B tenants in the portfolio and they offer various kinds of healthy dishes for the customers to choose from. And all of these are aligned with the WELL certification nutrition suggestions. Yeah, so just creating a space for people to enjoy and have a healthy lifestyle. So there's also one part of placemaking that make the mall very unique.
Yeah, definitely it's very close to our hearts that placemaking is essentially a concept where people do not just come to work and be home, but it's really like a place that people can enjoy and can do more and, let's say, combine a lot of things into a space itself to fully utilize the asset. So just now you mentioned about the example that you had, which I realized is actually quite a combination of like history and modern vibrancy. And I think it sounded like it is really one of the core pillars of how you guys design such urban spaces. So I'm curious to know why is it important to anchor both history and vibrancy in one?
Yeah, so we have a concept called urban regeneration, and it involves kind of revamping an old historical cultural area by contemporizing it with shops, retail, and experiences that would attract people to come back to revitalize the place.
For tourism.
For tourism, for special experiences, for art and culture, for shopping, and just a 24-hour kind of place where you can enjoy yourself. This is quite special because otherwise the historical places are just there and with no people to use it, then there's no value. But then if we modernize it, but keeping the integrity of the culture and still paying homage to the history, then we're able to make this place relevant and modern and popular again. So, and Swire Properties, one of the most successful examples to date is our Taikoo Li Chengdu project, which was opened in 2015. So this year, our portfolio is celebrating the 10th anniversary. So for this particular project, we actually was built around a Daci temple, which is a temple with 1,400 years of history. And we preserved 6 traditional courtyards and buildings that were showcasing Sichuanese traditional architectural styles. And while we're trying to harmonize with the history, we also put in more than 300 retail shops and eateries. There's also a boutique luxury hotel. And with this, we have created a lot of buzz around the place. And it has become a world-class experiential retail destination. And each year, it welcomes about more than 30 million people to visit the site. So this was one of our first urban regeneration projects that have shown that there's a lot of attraction related to contemporizing an old place, and people see the emotional value of it and they enjoy spending the time there.
Definitely. So Phoebe, just now like you have mentioned around the example of Chengdu, which is around the concept of urban regeneration, are there any other projects that is different from the one that you have just shared?
Yes, definitely. We actually have quite a pipeline of urban regeneration projects. One of the exciting ones is Zhangyuan, which is in Shanghai. And the first phase of Zhangyuan was opened in 2022. It is in the middle of the bustling district, Jing'an district, and it dated back to 1882. So in this Zhangyuan area, we have 170 buildings that are built with the traditional Shikumen style, which is a Shanghainese style, with 28 different modifications of the architectural styles. So with this location, we want to keep the integrity of the historical buildings. So we have to incorporate a lot of research and references into the traditional craftsmanship, the materials that were used, as well as the drawings from the very original times. Apart from just the restoration of the buildings itself, actually Zhangyuan has a very interesting history. It has made a lot of firsts in Shanghai. For example, it is the place where the first electric light in China was lit. And also, it was the place where the Peking opera master Mei Lanfang made his debut. And also the Kung Fu master Huo Yanjia also competed there. So it has been a very cutting edge place through history. And so our job for placemaking is to really bring back that energy and that internationalism and the latest trends around the world back into this place. And so this is a particularly meaningful project because it has a lot of historical and emotional value for the people of Shanghai.
So from what you have said just now, Swire Properties' placemaking strategy doesn't really just stop at the design and operations of your portfolios, but it definitely sounds like it weaves more into tenant engagement as well. Can you share a bit more about some of the initiatives of your organization in this aspect?
Sure. Maybe I can first explain why we are working with tenants. From the sustainability perspective, how we use the building, the tenants' occupancy of the building, account for a significant portion of the environmental aspect of the building. So, for example, in the retail mall context, the tenants actually use up about 65% of the energy and 80% of the water that's consumed, and also 90% of the waste which we manage. And so in order to have a sustainable building, engaging with tenants is necessary. Another aspect of tenant engagement is placemaking, right? As we were talking about throughout this podcast. And tenants' engagement is very important to define the character of the place. For example, the types of retail and F&B tenants that we have in a portfolio will impact how people interact with the space, how they spend time there. And also how tenants participate in different programs, from environmental to more social and community programs, will also impact the vibrancy of the place. And that's why we need to create very strong relationships with our tenant. So with that, throughout the years, we have evolved different kinds of programs. For example, for the office tenant community, we have the Green Performance Pledge, which was launched in 2021. And now this program actually involves more than 150 tenants across Hong Kong and the Chinese mainland. And what we do there is to provide capacity building to tenants. We also help them to install smart metering, collect data, benchmark the performance, and provide recognition. And then for F&B tenants, we also have a Green Kitchen initiative. And with that, we hope to provide a platform for tenants to have sustainability conversations with us while they are designing their kitchen and the shop. And the reason being, F&B tenants use a lot of equipment. They tend to have a higher environmental footprint compared to an office tenant. So how they design and select their design elements will be very important. So with this program, since we started in 2017, we have already more than 120 tenants that have participated. So with the successes of the GPP and the Green Kitchen Initiative, last year we have launched the Green Retail Partnership Program, which is more focused on anchor retail brands. So in the luxury, automobile sectors, etc. And the reason for that is now that we have all these great retail developments coming up, as I mentioned, we want to engage them from the beginning to design the most sustainable shop. And so with this program, we'll be working with them from the pre-leasing stage to when they start the design to the fitting out, so that when we open our new portfolio, it's going to be a very sustainable community for everyone who enjoys time there.
Definitely, tenancy community is very vital to the entire conversations. Just curious to learn a bit more. What are possibly some of the challenges that you have encountered in this few initiatives, which all sounds very promising and very exciting, but definitely deep down.
There are a lot of challenges, actually, but they're all very interesting. For example, we have a lot of tenants that come from multinational backgrounds. And actually, even though they have a very strong commitment to sustainability on a company level, maybe when the time they get to the local level, they would have very diverse levels of capacity and resources. And so we cannot just have a one-size-fit-all approach and just throw them something and expect them to
follow.
Exactly. So there's a lot of personal touch, trying to find the right champion and trying to understand their need and also to engage the right persons who can make the decisions and motivate others within the company to participate. And another challenge that we have seen is how do we actually engage people, not just the company, right? So when we work on, say, Green Performance Pledge with office tenants, we are partnering with the company. But then the real change comes from the people. So how do we influence up beyond the office admin person or the senior management, right? So that really inspires us to think about the tools that we can provide. For example, digital tools that can gamify the whole data collection and performance tracking process. And say for the Green Kitchen Initiative, we also have evolved from just looking at the kitchen design, but also at consumer-facing aspects like sustainable menu options, like reusable cutlery, and so on and so forth, so that the scheme itself can be more appealing to the public. And I think the third challenge we have seen is very often we talk about environmental program and environmental performance, but how does it actually relate to the business itself? Because in order for the program to be sustainable, it has to have a business imperative. So in the past few years, we have worked a lot on building the business case around our tenant engagement. For example, for the GPP, we're engaging office tenants, and we're actually offering a lot of value-adding service that will help them to become more sticky in our portfolios. And for Green Kitchen, we are trying to reward our F&B tenants by providing more connection with the loyalty schemes. So say if customers come and spend money at the shop, then they can actually get some extra discount or extra coupon. So we can actually drive business to the shop as a way to reward them for participating in our different initiatives.
So there's like a win-win to both ends.
Yeah, it has to be a win-win for it to be sustainable.
Actually, what you mentioned just now is actually very applicable to what we are doing in JEB, or probably in like Swire Properties itself as well, like influencing people to understand about the topic, as well as to so-called break fronts so that they can also have some guidelines to help them and roll with us to understand about this topic around sustainability, which to a day-to-day person might not be something that they really have it at the front of their mind. Yeah. Just now you mentioned something around like smart metering, which is to me like very data centric. Like as a data person here, I'm just very curious, like what kind of success metrics or measurable impacts these initiatives have seen?
Yeah, for the Green Performance Pledge program, we are helping tenants to install smart meters, and we are very happy to see that there are actually some quantifiable environmental impact throughout the years. For example, last year we looked at the data and we found that actually the participating tenants have reduced their electricity use intensity by 3.8%. And that translates to 1 million Hong Kong dollars in energy bill savings. So that's very tangible for all the participating tenants. We also saw that their waste diversion rate improved by 10 percentage points. So in the future, if there is any waste charging, that will actually directly translate to monetary savings for them. And for the Green Kitchen initiative, we also saw that some of the tenants have some environmental improvement. For example, we worked with a large F&B group to collect some data for one of their shops in Pacific Place. They have followed our Green Kitchen guidelines, and after their renovation, they saw that their carbon emissions overall reduced by 14%. And also they have saved more water and recycled more waste. But that said, apart from the quantifiable impact, I think there's also a lot of intangible value to tenant engagement, which involves like building a strong relationship and retaining the tenants, which is very crucial in the current competitive market and the economic situation.
Like you mentioned about the economy status, and I also see that the world has transformed into a more climate conscious / volatile world. Like coming to the end of our podcast today, could you share with our listeners like what do you see as the next thing for placemaking and also the tenant engagement in Swire Properties?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we have just reached our SD vision 6 years ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we really were very happy about that. But that begs the question of what is next for us. And so we have started a process to refresh and review our SD strategy and to refine our sustainable development vision, as well as what are the initiatives and targets that are actually going to help future-proof our developments. So with that, we have just started to put our heads together around the whole company to review all the different aspects of the strategy, from placemaking to people, to partners engagement, to like nature strategies, circularity strategies, and so on and so forth. Apart from this kind of company-wide exercise, I think in terms of our placemaking efforts, we're also looking into how do we better embed social value into our whole project development and property management processes. And what that means is while we do a lot of placemaking, I'm sure that we are making an impact on the community. But what is our theory of change? From what we do, what are the outcomes that we want to see? How do we define these outcomes? How do we quantify the social value that we create? And how do we report on them and benchmark ourselves against other peers, right? So this is a relatively new and emerging area for developers locally and for the placemaking strategies. And I think the final point that I want to make is just now we mentioned a lot of the new developments at Swire Properties. There is actually more. So we have a lot of exciting new retail developments coming up, each of which all of them will be different. For example, we have a project called Taikoo Li Chengdu, which is going to be our first resort-themed retail development in the popular destination of Hainan. So we are really looking forward to extending our net zero designs and also our green retail partnership program into these new developments. so that it will become another big wow for everyone who goes there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really very excited for all this development, and hopefully one day I can be there by myself to see it happening.
Definitely.
Thank you once again for joining our podcast today. Today's conversations reminds us that placemaking is a living, breathing practice, one that honors the past and bridging the future. If you found our episode insightful, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time.